This is a 2003 Porsche 911 Carrera 4S, and it comes from the 911's despised 996 generation. Most Porsche enthusiasts hate the 996 model. They think that this was the low point of the 911, the worst 911 ever made. And they are laughably, hilariously wrong. I think that this is the very best Porsche 911 of all time, and today I've borrowed this 996 from a viewer, and I'm going to address all of the complaints about this car, and then I'm going to show you why they're all completely wrong. Now, before I get started, here's a quick little refresher course for those of you who aren't up on your 911s. Everybody says that the 911s all look the same, but really there have been 7 generations of the 911. Now, the car originally came out in 1963, and the original 911 went all the way through 1989 with only minor revisions here and there. Now, in 1989, the 964 model came out. That went through 1994, and then in 95 there was the 993 911, which went through 1998. Purists love those because they're sort of considered the end of the line of the original 911. In 1999, this came out, the 996, and it was sold through 2005, this being the one that everybody hates. Beginning in 2005 came the 997 model. Everybody really likes the 997. It was considered sort of a return to form. And then beginning in 2012, there was the 991. The 991 is the newest model, the fastest, most technologically advanced version of the breed, and it's primarily driven by 74-year-old orthodontists slowly on Sunday mornings to go pick up their dry cleaning. Now that we've covered that, here's how this is going to go. Throughout this video, I'm going to take each complaint about the 996, I'm going to address it, and then I'm going to explain why it's wrong. And then I'm going to take this 996 out on the road and tell you how it drives. And of course, for more of my thoughts on the 996 experience, click the link below to check out my column on autotrader.com/oversteer. I suspect by the end of this, you'll be thinking one of two different things. Either this guy's right, the 996 really is a great 911, or perhaps more likely, this guy's an idiot. Now, one of the biggest complaints about the 996 relates to its interior, and specifically the fact that it looks pretty outdated. People with 993 911 specifically make this complaint. Oh, I would never own a 996 because the interior looks so outdated. And I admit, it isn't exactly modern in here. This cabin would fit nobody's definition of cutting edge. But two things about the interior. Number one, this car is almost 20 years old. Of course the interior isn't going to be modern and cutting edge. This thing came out in 1999. Do you know how bad car interiors were in 1999? Take a gander real quick at the 1999 Ford Taurus's center control stack and just be thankful that this thing is many steps above that. Also, this is the thing that gets me most. The people who mainly level the complaint about the 996's interior are 993 owners. Well, have you seen the interior of the 993? What are you bragging about? That your radio is side by side with your climate controls? Are you bragging about that little button in the center with the exclamation point on it? Here's a little fact for you. This steering wheel is something that was included in a Porsche 911, not in the 1950s, but in 1990. And this steering wheel was included in a Porsche 911 in the 1980s. Here's a new rule going forward. If you have either of those steering wheels in your 911, you are no longer allowed to complain about the interior of the 996. Another complaint about the 996 is the headlights. This one is unavoidable. Now, for the entire history of the 911, the headlights have been circles. Circle, 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 circle. But when the 996 came out, Porsche was like, nah, we're gonna make it look like this. It was a radical departure. And when the 996 first came out, people called it the fried egg 911 because it looked like the circles were a little runny, and also because Porsche had put an orange turn signal here, which they ditched when they facelifted the 996 in 2002. Now, I admit that the headlights aren't great. I don't have the bizarre sheer hatred for them that some people do, but they're less than perfect. However, if you'll come along this way with me, please. Keep coming. Keep coming. You can see the car from this angle, the rear 3/4. And from this angle, I personally think, should I say it?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, say it.
I think from this angle, this looks like the most attractive 911 of all time. I'm gonna be killed, aren't I? Although the standard 911 looks just fine from this angle, the wide-body cars, the Turbo and this Carrera 4S, are especially beautiful. That wide rear fender, those gorgeous wheels, the unique bumper with the ducts, that rear light bar that suited the car so well. I'm being 100% serious when I say I think from certain angles this car looks better than any other 911 ever built, period. Another common complaint about this car is the intermediate shaft bearing, which is also known as the IMS, which can fail without warning. Now, I'm not going to get too technical here, but basically what happens when the IMS fails is you're driving along in your 911, just cruising down the street, enjoying your day without a care in the world, and then all of a sudden the IMS fails and your engine explodes. Now, this isn't bad design, obviously, but there are a few things to keep in mind here. Number one is that most high-performance cars have some sort of factory grenade that comes up and costs a lot of money as the car gets older. The Vano system in the E46 BMW M3, the valve guides in the 993 911, the snap ring transmission problem in the early Acura NSXs, there's always something. Another thing to keep in mind is that this car's IMS problem really only affects a small portion of the cars. It's not half or a quarter, but maybe more like 5%. Now, I admit there's not a lot of comfort in that if you're among the 5% that it affects, since a new engine in this car is something like $30,000. But here's the thing, the IMS is fixable. When you go to buy one of these, check to see if it has the new IMS, and if it doesn't, just budget $2,000 to put another one in. For $2 grand, you have all the peace of mind in the world. You'll never have to think about the IMS again. And that $2 grand should really be no big deal, because the very best thing about the 996 is value. For proof, I have with me the owner of this particular 996, who also happens to be my best friend, Perry. Now, Perry, what did you pay for this car?
I paid $31,800.
$31,800. And if you'd gotten a 993 Carrera 4S, what do you think you'd have paid?
Probably about 70 grand.
70 grand. And if you'd gotten the next generation, the 997 Carrera 4S, what do you think that would have been?
Probably about 50.
50 grand, all right. And does your car handle like a dump truck compared to those cars?
No, Doug, it's still a 911.
Still a 911. And is it a lot slower than those cars?
No.
And so basically you got a $20,000 to $40,000 discount because your headlights have a weird shape and you have some plastic in the interior.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
The other thing I like about the 996 is its size. Newer 911 models have gotten so big and luxurious that they've moved on from sports car to touring car or luxury car. In fact, if you go on Renlist, the Porsche 911 forum right now, and look at all the discussions about the 991, what you'll find people talking about is, did you get your air vent slats painted in leather? What color did you do the stitching on the parking brake boot? And that stuff really shouldn't matter. It's like these people have lost the point of what a pure sports car should be. But the 996 was reasonably sized and nimble, not too wide or too long like modern 911 models. It wasn't quite as tossable as the original 911, but it was still a lot of fun, a point I'm now going to prove by taking it out on the road. All right, we're driving the 996. Now, the thing you notice instantly about the 996, you just feel so comfortable in this car. I just feel like I know exactly what I'm doing. That's how 911s are, and it's not like the 996 is worse just because it has weird headlights. It still drives like a 911. I mean, the cornering is so good. It's so flat, and it's so quick. That's the best thing about this car. It's so funny. I get all the criticism about the interior and the exterior. I understand how people can feel that way. But anybody who really complains about this car has never driven one. Oh, the rev match. It's so easy to rev match because the transmission revs so predictably and so quickly. It's just a joy. It feels so stable at speed. We're going 75 miles an hour. It feels so tremendously stable, even though this thing is 13 years old. It's so funny because you get all these criticisms about 996 and you start thinking, oh, well, it's not that good. It's not a good 911. Well, only cosmetically, maybe, if that's what you think. When you actually drive it, it is every bit as good as any other 911. Now, I've previously advocated for the 996 Turbo. A long time ago, I wrote a very memorable column about how the 996 Turbo is the best 911, and it's a great car. People have come to me at Cars and Coffee and said they bought a 996 Turbo in part because of that column, and I'm really flattered by that. However, over time, I've actually kind of changed my opinion. 420 horsepower in that 996 Turbo, 0 to 60 in 4 point whatever, you don't need that. This car, for $15,000 less or $10,000 less, is just as exciting as that, and maybe more exciting because you have to work a little bit more for the power.
You're the one who convinced me to buy this over a turbo.
Right. This car is the power is right in the right range. 320 horsepower is the perfect amount of power, and especially in a car like this, because this car isn't designed for high-speed highway pulls. You just can have fun with it. You can just kind of throw it around and enjoy it. Oh God, I could just weave through traffic in this thing all day. If you start to think of the 996 as not a real 911, not as good as a 911, you'll wonder when you drive it, what is everybody talking about? This thing's amazing. It just shifts so perfectly. I've always said everybody should learn to drive stick in a 911. Of course, nobody actually has that opportunity, but they're just the easiest cars to operate a manual with. Woo! I can just fire off such smooth shifts. I've been driving this car 6 minutes and I'm already like a master of it. That's how Porsches are. Some cars I drive for an hour and I still don't really feel like I know what I'm doing, and it just handles so well. It is so perfectly precise. And I swear, it isn't just precise for a 2003 car, and it isn't just precise for a used $30,000 car. It's just really, really good. I truly believe, and I've said this to many people who have asked me, if I didn't have to buy weird cars for my job so that I could write about them, if I could just buy something that I wanted, I would get a 996, either a C4S like this one or even just a narrow body regular Carrera, and I would just have fun with it. So here's the thing about the 996 911. It may not be the all-time greatest 911 ever, but it absolutely is when you consider the price. A Carrera 4S model like this one is worth about $30,000. A base level 996 Carrera you can get in the 20s for a modern Porsche 911, and even the turbo, the 911 Turbo, 420 horsepower. Those things are going for something like $40,000. That's nothing. This is an incredible value, the best value in the Porsche world, and frankly, one of the best values in the entire car industry. If you've ever considered a 996 911 and you've turned it down for any of the reasons I listed before, maybe you should give it a second thought. Happens to be my best friend Perry. Now Perry, what did you pay for this vehicle?
$31,800.
You're gonna do it like that? Expensive model in the breed, and it's primarily driven slowly by 74-year-old author. Oh look, that's a 92X Aero.
Yeah, it is.
Wow, one of those.